is prior, we only had soccer offered on Monday and Wednesday for the little kids. And we said, well, if we open it up and we tell the parents, go ahead and choose Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, I think that's what brought the most amount of kids to our program, because when the parents signed up, they knew they were signing up for either Monday, Wednesday at 6 o'clock, or they were signing up for Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. So there were no unknowns. They knew what they were signing up for, and it made it easier. Well, shoot, can we still do this with dance? Can we still do it with softball? Well, now I know when I'm signing up, this is what I get. So I think that helped us. That helped us a lot. Another thing that helped us is we started a grasshopper program, which was our preschool program, and that brought a ton of kids. Once we had them at 4 years old, then they stayed with us kindergarten through third grade. The grasshopper program, go ahead.
Tammy, just a quick question about the grasshopper. So that is not an age that was currently part of your program. What was there communication that you received that there was an interest from kids that age, or did you sense that this would be a good idea? Was it a marketing decision? Like, hey, if we get them in young, they're going to stay. What convinced you to start them?
We had people just asking us, hey, do you have anything for the preschoolers? And we didn't have anything from the preschoolers. And T-ball was starting to do 4-year-olds. So we said, hey, why don't we figure out something for our 4-year-olds? And it was literally me and another mommy sitting at the YMCA thinking, how can we get these 4-year-olds and build a good program? And the second season we ran grasshoppers, we had 180 4-year-olds. It's the simplest program to run. They sign up, we break the grasshoppers into groups of 6, and we make teams and we make a game schedule. On Sunday, they only show up on Sundays for 1 hour. They do a half-hour practice followed by a half-an-hour game. And that's it. And once we have them at grasshoppers, those 180 kids, and a lot of 4-year-olds can play soccer, right? Like, more than they can play t-ball or any other sport. They can't necessarily play football at 4. They can't play, they're not coordinated to play softball at 4. But at 4 years old, they can kick a soccer ball. Now it looks like bumblebee soccer and they're all swarming, so we only have them play 3v3. But it brought us the numbers. And so those 180 kids, hopefully they had a great experience. And then they sign up, then we have them hooked, and then they're signed up for our kindergarten through third grade rec program, where we can build the teams and we have enough to build our leagues. So our kindergarten and third graders, we have split up. We have them split up between we have kindergarten and first grade boys that can make up, we have enough kids to make 10 teams. We have kindergarten and first grade girls that we can make 8 teams. And then we have second and third grade girls and second and third grade boys, and we have about 6 teams on each of those. One of the problems, I was going to save this for later, but now that I'm talking about second and third grade, so you need a healthy league. And what we were seeing is that the second and third graders were all asking, well, we want to get out of in-house and we want to move to travel. We want to get into travel. How can we get into travel? Well, it was a balancing act between the rec program and the travel program, because if I let them take too many of those second and third graders into their travel program, you're desecrating our rec program. So our high school coaches had an idea, and I'm wondering Jason Nelson, are you on this call with me?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so Jason is our high school coach. And so Jason and is also the director of Green Soccer. And so Jason and I and our other high school coach came up with a plan. Listen, we want to take those second and third graders and we want to identify them and give them a little extra, but keep the third graders and the second graders within our rec program so that we have our hands on them in developing them. So Jason and Dan came up with what they call the Bulldog Plus program. And in that program, they kept all the second and third graders in-house. Well, our third graders can also do travel, but it really kept our second graders in-house from wanting to do travel. And they identified the kids just by walking around the fields, no tryouts. They saw them in some of our extra training. And from there, they picked our top 10 second and third grader girls and our top 10 second and third grade boys that are still in rec, and invited them to our Bulldog Plus program. And there they had one extra night of training with our high school coaches over a course of 6 weeks. And then they worked towards going to the Medina Miss tournament, you know, as their finale. So it allowed them to get a little extra that, you know, they're not just in the in-house program, but they are in, you know, they're getting a little extra so that we can keep our numbers healthy within the rec program. Okay, so going back to how we keep our numbers up in rec. So I think we did 2 things that were really important. We made our program family friendly, and then we helped our coaches and supported our coaches. So family friendly, you know, I told you that when they registered, they got to pick Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. We also guaranteed that every sibling is going to be on the same time at the same location. So we're really lucky in Green that we have a large facility where we can fit 10 fields in one location. So we have our U7, our U6 and U7 fields. We have 6 of them, and right next to them are our U8 and U9 fields. And so I can put all of the kindergarten and 3rd graders, half of them there Monday, Wednesday, half of them there Tuesday, Thursdays. And when I do the rosters, all of the siblings are there at the same time. And this helps the parents out tremendously. And many have told me we wouldn't have been able to sign up if we didn't have all the kids at the same location. So it's a little tricky when they register. They need to register and tell me if there's a sibling in the program. And then when we build the rosters, I have to make sure that I have all the sibling pairs on the same nights, either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. And then again, they know they're signing up at 6 o'clock, and they know the games will be Saturday at 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and they know that when they sign up, and I don't change. And I'm almost like a Hitler with my coaches, and I tell the coaches, we don't change. We're not very flexible. Every practice is the same time that we advertise, and every game is about the same time as we advertise, with some flexibility with the game time if we can't make it work. And then the next thing, I think that's one of the biggest part of our Green Soccer program, is what we do for the coaches. So we have every rec coach on the same curriculum. We've given curriculums to every coach. And when you go out there and look at our teams on Monday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, Thursday, they're all doing the same thing. They all have the same playbook, and they were all trained. So prior to the season starting, we have all of the coaches in for an in-class meeting, and that's run by our high school coaches, and Brad and Tom come and help me run that. And then we have training on the field for the coaches to show them how to use our curriculum. And that's done prior to the season starting. And, you know, little tricks. So when we scheduled their classroom meetings and when we scheduled their on-field training before the season started, to get them there and to get more people there, what we did is we scheduled it on the same day and time as they were coaching. So if the coach signed up to be there on Monday and Wednesday, then that's when we had their training. They had their training on Monday and Wednesday. Or if they signed up to coach on Tuesday, Thursday at 6 o'clock, then that's when we had the training on Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock. That way I knew they were going to show up. So I think we can run through some of the curriculum that we give our coaches and some of the on-field training.
Can I jump in just for a second, Tammy? Maybe
Yes,
this is a good time to back up and talk about when previously there was a relationship that you guys had, you know, with a club, and then you decided as an organization and the board decided to go in a different direction, and how did Ohio North come to get involved, and then ultimately Jason and Dan get involved? Because I think that's an interesting evolution, because you talked about how that helped potentially your coaches.
Yep. So years ago, we wanted to give our coaches a little extra, and this is before we had the curriculum. And so we had a local club come to us and ask, do we need any help, any foot skills help or training? And so myself and other people on the board jumped on that. If we have professionals, this was before we had any professional help or any high school help from our high school coaches. And I said, yeah, I'd love it. Come in and we welcome you, and go ahead and help train our kids. And that relationship looked like the club showed up to our rec fields every night, and the teams rotated through the foot skills that the club provided. So the club was there to provide foot skills. Every team went to them for 20 minutes and then went back with their coach. And there wasn't, once they went back with their coach, there was nothing standard that anybody was doing. It was kind of willy-nilly. But that 20 minutes, everybody had the foot skills. A couple things that we found with that particular club is that when the kids came to do the foot skills, they were all standing in line, and the kids didn't like it. They didn't like being interrupted from their practice to come and do the foot skills and stand in line. Another thing that we found is the club was heavily recruiting our players, and they were passing out flyers and encouraging our players, you know, we're community soccer, to go play with them so that they can go and get college scholarships. And so that became a tricky relationship because we wanted to train our players, but we also didn't want to lose our players. And we were losing players when we invited the club in. Now I think we have a little better balance when we changed that. So about that time, I think by a fluke, Brad Evans moved to Green Soccer and came to us and said, "You guys need any help?" And about that time, myself and some on the board were getting tired of some of the recruiting that was going on with the clubs, and the coaches weren't coming. And the worst was then the coaches didn't want to come to the foot skills because they saw their kids were bored, and the coaches said, "No, we're not going to foot skills." So then we had some going to foot skills and some not going to foot skills. So that was a little tricky. But I think the intention was good and the kids were learning some foot skills, I think, but now we've evolved into, you know, a better way. So Brad said he would like to work with us on the curriculum. And then at that time, Jason Nelson, our high school coach, and Dan Harlan, our high school coach, came to us and said they were ready to leave their clubs and dive into Green Soccer and be part of our program. So really in the matter of maybe one season, we went very quickly from ending our contract with the club and having Brad and Tom come in and write us curriculum, and then having Jason and Dan, the high school coaches, come in and also working with the coaches and walking around monitoring the coaches on the field. So that's a big part of our curriculum. When the coaches are doing their curriculum, then there's also trainers walking around helping them. And maybe not always just to help them, but when those coaches see, you know, Jason show up on the field and he's walking up with his orange shirt, then they're like, oh, you know, I better stay on track and follow this curriculum and get my lesson plans done, you know. But I think the lessons also gave the coaches some relief. And I think that's how we kept our coaches. So we got guys who were willing, you know, I'm not sure if I want to coach or not coach. And by giving them a curriculum, they're like, oh, okay, I can do this. You taught me how to follow it, and I can follow it, and I can do it. And I think that they're coming back more because of it. Do you agree, Jason, or have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it gave them a lot more comfortability on the field. At first, we had some resistance, but after that, it was fantastic. And I think you're seeing people appreciate the evolution of it as we continue to you know, add things and tweak it. So it's been great.
Hey, Tammy, do you want to talk about the video piece, whether that worked or why it was necessary, and if it's actually worked, or still that's another step forward that everybody would have to take?
Yes, and Tom, I can, I'm planning on sharing my screen so we can go through some of the curriculum and then show them the lessons that we videotaped. So after we had this curriculum book made and these lesson plans made, we used it for a couple seasons, and then I think it was Tom's idea. He said, hey, how about we videotape it, because the coaches just reading what their lesson was for the night might not be able to, you know, really understand the whole thing. So then Tom decided, let's videotape it. And we did it successfully. We still have a couple more to add. We contacted Stark State University, their media production, their kids who did media production. And I contacted their professor there and asked them if they would help us produce these videos. And the professor assigned it to their students as their final for their coursework that season. And so the kids came out and met Tom and Brad, and they came out with the microphones and the real cameras, and they had the ability to edit it. And, you know, for free, they produced a video for each of our lessons and sent us a link for each of our lessons that then we could attach to our lesson plans. And so the coaches can then, you know, when they're coming up to the field, they could click and watch that video. And I think that was helpful too.
So I think it maybe at this point in the conversation, I think it's pretty clear to say that, you know, your desire to be proactive and to attack the challenges and create pathways for solutions is pretty remarkable. Do you have help? How much time do you commit to this as different communities grapple with how they're going to get volunteers and things like that?
Yeah. So we are a board, and we're a board of 25, and I think there's a small group of us that are really active, you know, within the rec program. Putting the rosters together does take a tremendous amount of time for me. You know, I'm probably, by the time registration ends and the season starts, I give myself about 2.5 months. And that is, I start with getting all the coaches, you know, figuring out how many kindergarten first graders I have, how many second and third graders I have, then dividing up and figure out how many teams I have. And then it's placing the coaches, going by the registration who volunteered to coach. And then we're really lucky because the next step is, if I don't have enough coaches to fill into every team, now with Jason and Dan involved in the high school program, they've offered their high school students. And so we use our high school students as coaches and assistant coaches, and we pay them $200 for a season, which isn't that much because we have our season's about 8 weeks. So they do 2 nights of practice and a Saturday morning game, and we pay them $200. Going back to registration, our rec players pay $80 to register, and then they pay $20 for a uniform. And so with that $80 registration, that then we're able to cover, we pay our high school coaches $50 a night to be there. You know, we'll play Brad and Tom. I'm just going to say it in case anybody wants Brad and Tom, you know, we pay them about $150 a night. And then the kids, paying the high school kids $200 a night. And then some of our budget then gets moved into travel and kind of like rec funds our travel program. So
I think
okay.
that's a huge point about getting the high school kids involved. And the only reason I bring it up is because my daughter's one of them. And I think that the high school coaches encouraging the kids to do it, I think, has benefits, you know, not just for the high school kids, but also for the community piece. And then, you know, sort of passion and love of the game. The kids can demonstrate things that some of the parent coaches can't. So I think it's a really great idea. And while $200 may not seem like a lot, that's a lot. You know, to feel like they got paid for their time, I think is a huge thing. So,
I think scheduling the high school kids gets a little tricky. You know, I'm in constant contact with the kids. I have a spreadsheet going. If anybody wants to participate, can you do it Monday, Wednesday, or can you do it Tuesday, Thursday? During their club season, it gets a little tricky because I have to wait for them to get their clubs. You know, they have to find out, okay, my club's practicing on Monday, Wednesday, so I can give you Tuesday and Thursday. In the high school, the fall season, they're still willing to do it. Luckily, our boys play, Jason, what is it, Tuesday, Thursday, the boys play? Or is it the opposite?
Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, girls Monday, Wednesday, Saturday.
Yeah, so then I know I can schedule them the opposite. When I do their game schedules on Saturday, I always look at the high school game schedules first, and then I try and do our game schedule for rec earlier in the morning in the fall, so then the high school kids can still get on their bus and go. What it's really helped us with is I'm not begging parents who have no soccer experience. So, you know, we have our experienced, you know, parents out there that want to help us, and they sign up, but my goal is to give every team a head coach and an assistant. That way, you know, practices aren't canceled, and I don't have to worry about, well, this one's sick or that one's not, you know, sick. They have 2 going into it. And so once I start filling it in, you know, whatever extra spaces, I'm not calling up Joe Schmo down the road who's never touched a soccer ball and ask him to coach the kids. Instead, I'm going to the high school kids and saying, okay, these are the spots available and let's fill you guys in.
I think it was when Brad and I walked around the first night, something that struck us both was the percentage of the people who were comfortable as soccer players. So excluding the high school kids who clearly are, the number of parents who had some experience with the game to the point where it wasn't a foreign sport to them really helped. But I think significantly, we realized we had some work to do with that group, because the old notion, just because we played doesn't mean we can coach. That was so true with this group. There was an awful lot of work to do. And I think having Jason and Dan walking about, you can't underestimate how important that was for changing people's motivations to get on board. But the potential was there because there were folk who were coming into the game knowing what the game looked and felt like. And I don't think that can be underestimated in terms of how that translated into things looking like soccer when you walked around the fields.
One nice thing with having these guys walking around the field during practice is okay, I'm just going to say it blunt. Then we knew which coaches to get rid of and not ask the next season. You know, Tom would walk around and be like, this one's not following the curriculum. He's going rogue. The kids are standing in line. The kids aren't having fun. You know, don't ask them back next year. And we didn't have anybody there to tell me that before. I wasn't there. I have kids all over town. You know, before I'd set up the coaches and say, go. And after the season started, the coaches had no help or, you know, no principals walking around. You know, and now I can tell Jason, I'm like, hey, this parent says, you know, this high school kid's complaining about this, or the parent's having a problem. And Jason's like, I'll handle it. He goes, talks to the coach and be like, listen, you know, how can you fix it? You know, a good example was we had one team this spring that was clobbering, you know, a rec. If I do my job right with the rosters are balanced and we have competitive games. And then we had one team beating another team 15-0 when we're all Bulldogs and we're all friends. Couldn't that coach do anything so the score doesn't end up 15-0? And so, you know, what do? I text Jason. I was like, hey, this team ended with a 15-0 record, you know, game. What are you going to do? And, you know, Jason goes out there and then talks to the coach and gives him some ideas on how to, you know, rebalance. And one of the things is we said, we're all Bulldogs. Why is, you know, if that's happening, take the two kids, it's a rec game, mix them up and make two new teams, you know, and play and get the teams more even that Saturday. You didn't have to stick with the groups that were on the rosters. We're all together. I can show you a little bit about how we do balance our teams in the rec program. So I'm going to share my screen right now, if I remember how to do that. And I'm going to show you how we build a rec roster to try and balance it a little better. Okay. Here's my rec rosters. Okay, so the first thing we do, Brad, is my screen sharing now? Okay.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so we do collect some data on the kids after every season. So at the end of every season, we ask every head coach and assistant coach to rate the players on their team and to rate them from 1 to 5. You know, 1 being a superior player and 5 being a very weak player. And they only share this with me, and I'm the only one that sees these. And then ask them to mark when they send me back the email if it's a behavior problem or an attendance problem. So what I shared with you is the actual email that I send to the coaches. I do ask both the head and the assistant coaches to rate the players because they're rating their own children. Most of the parents, you know, are the coaches. So if I have, you know, a head coach that marks somebody as a 1 and the assistant coach marks someone as a 2, in my database, I might put a 2.5. Or if someone rates it a 1 or a 3, I might put it as a 2. Now, I know this is all, willy-nilly, but over time, I will tell you that we start seeing some patterns. And over, multiple seasons, we do see, the players that, they're about twos. When they go into travel, we kind of have those numbers. And it just helps me balance the rosters. So this is actually the database where after the coaches send it to me, I have every kid that has probably gone through green soccer since spring of 2012. And we have all of their little rec ratings so that when I have the new rosters come out to me, I can, go back and look and grab their last score. And so that helps me balance the rosters a little bit more. I'm going to go into my rosters now, and I'm going to click on my Bulldog girls. So we actually named these. Jason, I think Jason's the one who named them. Our kindergarten and first graders are called Junior Bulldogs. And our second and third graders are called Bulldogs. So right now we're looking at a second and third grade Bulldog roster. If you look at H down, we try to divide everybody by second and third grade. We do first I have to divide them into groups of, I put all the kids on Monday, Wednesday in one group. I put all the kids on Tuesday, Thursday in another group. And I start placing. Okay, let's get rid of all of our Monday, Wednesday kids, and I give everybody a second grader, I give everybody a third grader, until, we have about half of our second graders and half of our third graders. When I pull them, I try to, spread out our ones, so all the kids who were rated a 1, I try to divide them up on, every team gets a 1, and every team gets a 2. If we don't have a rating for a kid, if you look at column O there, we actually, and I guess this could be controversial, but during the registration process, we actually ask the parent to rate their child's athleticism. And they rate their child athleticism and they don't see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. I put that in later. But we ask them to rate their child as the player almost always outplays others at this age, or the player regularly outplays others at this age, or the player is equally likely to outplay others, all the way down to maybe some will say the player's almost always outplayed by others at this age. So 1 through 5. And then if we don't have a coach's score, then we use the parent score, and I drop it down. By, maybe half a score. So at the end, all of the scores, every team has the same average of player scores. So if you look at line O or line N, that is what their previous coach rated them. Line O is what their parents rated them. And then the score that we use for the rosters, I calibrate it to the left. So even like this first one, the last time they played was in U7. So now that they're playing U8, U9, I dropped them down to a 2. I didn't have a coach's score, so I used the parent score of a 3 and drop it down to 3.5. It might all look like shit when they get out on the field, and, but it gives us something, and it allows us not to do a draft because we didn't want to do a draft. Okay. Am I back on the screen then? Okay. Another thing to balance the rosters is we try not to accept requests. Basically, because all of the kids are there at the same location, same time. If a parent asks, well, I need my kid to be on this team because of a carpooling reason. And I say, well, you can still carpool because you're all still showing up Monday, Wednesday at 6 o'clock, and you're all still on the same fields because we have 10 fields out there. So we try not to accept requests anymore. And this season on the registration, I put a request policy that said, we're all Bulldogs and we'd appreciate you not making any requests. And I think that that's helped us balance our team because we started to see some teams that were stacked that, the better coaches were getting the better kids and all the friends. And then, everybody was on the same grade within one team. The abilities were starting to look alike because the kids are, if you're friends with the kids, chances are their athletic abilities are about the same. So you had groups of high athletic ability kids trying to group themselves together, and even the lower ability kids trying to group themselves together. So we kind of busted all of that up this season.
So Tammy, you've obviously the level of detail in that spreadsheet is fantastic for developing your rosters. You've got obviously a call to get volunteers involved to coach. Now you've matched up these coaches and teams. What's the next step for the coaches? You have a coaches meeting where you start to present the information that will help make the coach's job easier and hopefully make the kids' experience better.
Yep. So first we bring all the coaches in for a meeting, and it's an hour-and-a-half long meeting with a PowerPoint presentation, and we go over all of our expectations for the coaches. So Brad, should I share the PowerPoint before I share the curriculum?
I think you can, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to share screen, and we're going to go to the curriculum. And I'll show you where you can all find this online, because it is on Green Soccer's website online for you to find for your own program. Okay, so if you go to greensoccer.org, we have a website that you can find both our handbook for our coaches, which is our presentation that we do at our meeting, and you can also find our curriculum. So there's a tab under info for coaches, and we do give our grasshopper coaches and our rec coaches a handbook. So if we click on rec coaches, so the first thing we come to is these are our lesson plans, and this is the curriculum we give every coach. But first we have them in for a meeting. So I'm going to click on the coaches handbook, and I'm going to show you what we go over with the coaches at our meeting. Okay, so this is a PowerPoint, and we use the high school auditorium actually for this. We have a big enough crowd. Our numbers at rec are big enough that we have about 100 coaches. So we tell them it's mandatory, and that's when they get their rosters. So they need to come to the meeting in order to get their rosters and their folders and their coaches' shirts. One thing I do is I set up a remind text with all of my coaches that you'll see at the right, and that way I have quick communication with them really quick to tell them about fields or any information. I'll just scroll down. This is some of the information that I go over with the coaches. I make sure I introduce them to the trainers that are going to show up on the fields that week so that they understand that the trainers are there to help them and might butt in and take over some of their practices. I explain our rosters to them. One thing that we do for our head coaches is we do reimburse them their child's playing fee. So the $80, they get a coupon code for the following season. The next time they register their kid, they will get that $80 back. But they do have to, the first time they coach, they do have to pay for their child. I'm very direct with them. I tell them that they need to contact the players. I tell them the expectations of how many nights they're going to be there. I go over some little tips with them about doing roll call and making good first impressions. I explain to them that I expect them to be on the field for a mandatory practice on training on the field too. Explain to them where they can find their equipment.
Hey, Tammy, can you explain that equipment piece? Because that's not insignificant.
Yes, so you do need a lot of money in your club to make sure that they have the equipment. So we have a shed at Bettler Park, and we don't have enough equipment for the coaches to keep it in their car and take it home. So everybody shares the same equipment. But when I go over the curriculum with you, you'll see that your club needs to have the right equipment for the coaches in order to do effective lessons and follow, your lesson plans and curriculum. And the things that we found most important is to make sure we had a lot of cones there for the coaches, the low cones and the high cones. The pennies were really, really important, and we put a lot of money into getting smaller sized pennies for the little ones. And then these poles that I'm waving my cursor over, we bought a bunch. Oh, I feel like we bought 100 or 200 poles for the coaches to use, and they're using them as goals in their little small-sided practice games. We have some pugs. I wish more of them used them. I think they break and blow away, so we're kind of going to poles a little bit more. This was one thing that Tom noticed. You know, all of the lesson plans called for all these cones and poles, and when Tom was walking around, he said the coaches aren't using them. You know, how can you do these lessons without using them? And so I think we pushed them a lot more. I told Tom to take a wagon, throw all the equipment in, and just walk around and say, you know, you need to use this. Here you go. I'm going to go into our curriculum a little bit more. I think that's coming up next. I even give them, I'm pretty structured, guys. You'll see the teacher coming in me, but I give them rules for how, you know, when the kids go to the bathroom or how the kids go to the bathroom safely, how to dismiss the kids from the field safely. Our weather policy, basically I'm the only one that cancels, because if in green soccer rec, I am kind of the ruler of if practice is on or not, and we're all out there or we're all not out there. We're not having one coach out there and one coach not out there. This coach is sick and calls off. I tell them if they're sick and they can't make it, you tell me and I find another coach to cover for you. But we're all in this, and we all follow the same schedule. This is me telling them not to cancel stuff. I want to get into the curriculum here. This is just, okay. So here comes our curriculum. Brad and Tom set up our curriculum into 4 parts. And Brad, if you want to jump in and go over this, you can, but I will just give the overview. So it is broken up into 4 parts, and you've probably heard practice, the 3 Ps: play, practice, play. So when they first get there, they play some 1v1, 2v2, or 3v3 games for 20 minutes. Then they play a game that comes out of our lesson plan book. Then they play another game that comes out of our lesson plan book. And then they finish with a scrimmage, either a small-sided scrimmage or a full field scrimmage. And then this is what we expect our coaches to follow. The next part of our curriculum actually gives them the dates of what activity to do. That part 2 and part 3, where they're pulling from their playbook activity, we laid it out that on August 26th, your first playbook activity is ball tag, and then your second playbook activity is alien invasion. Now they practice 2 nights a week. So on the first night of the week, for those 2 practice games, they have to follow what's in the curriculum. The second night of the week, if you look up here, it says second practice of the week. For the practice part, they get to choose any game from the playbook. And then the second part is coach's choice. And I think this was Jason, when he walked around the field, he saw that the coaches were asking him, hey, you know, I have an idea. I really want to try something, but there's nothing in the curriculum that lets me kind of do my own thing. And so that there is built into this part of it that they can do a coach's choice for part of it.
If I can jump in too, and
Yes,
I think
please.
Tom is primarily the architect of the activities, and I think Tom, if you want to talk a little bit about the challenge is twofold here, because you're trying to find activities that meet the needs of the players at a certain age. So these are young, sort of novice players. So you're trying to find activities that appeal to what their needs are. But now you also have to find activities that a parent coach who isn't a teacher or organizing groups of kids is not a natural thing for them, that also works. So maybe Tom, you want to talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, maybe we can all just chime in, and I think there's probably enough experience with other folk who will understand this. Just because you see something that's 2D on a page doesn't mean it's going to translate into an activity, because they don't have experiences with forming activities that are more game based. So if you just stop there a little bit, Tammy, that was the warm up activity. So there's play one. And as much as we would think 20 minutes and we could rotate those players around and we could create a little bit of a competition so that for the first 20 minutes, they would just simply play games. And our job is to keep the teams balanced and to create competition by mixing up the kids if need be, have the parents play, anything that just got free play. That we learned we couldn't take that for granted, that it actually had to be something to help some people through, because they just viewed, they don't view practice, the benefits of practice relating to what the players decide. They viewed practice a lot of what they think they were teaching them. So the idea of letting players make decisions and creating organizations just as simple as this, where players make decisions, well, don't take that for granted. So it was interesting, evolving, even people who had backgrounds in the game, how much we had to work on those just to get them to understand philosophically what an ideal was. So if you want to keep going, Tammy.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to add about the arrival games is that, you know, we had to train our coaches that the first kid that steps foot on the field, the game starts as soon as the second kid steps on the field. As soon as you have 2 games, the practice starts. So we're not standing around waiting, oh, 1 kid shows up, 2 kids, 3 kids. Okay, now we have 5 kids. Well, should we wait for, you know, the 8th kid to show up to practice? This is practice when 2 kids show up, the 1v1 games start. You know, if you have 4 kids, that's 2v2, and you just keep adding kids and they keep playing until you have your whole team there. So this is one of the examples of one of the lessons in our lesson plans. I don't know how in depth we want to go with this.
I just keep going, because a lot of folk will have a good sense of what typical practices look like. So as you scroll through and folks see ideas of how at least the 2-dimensional games look, it will give people a sense that there was nothing magical to this. It was just trying to formulate something that was relatively consistent. The one, if you keep going, Tom, if you want, there's the shed.
The infamous shed.
Where was I going with that? The basic idea with the younger kids is all dribbling and passing, and then the 4 moments of the game: attacking, defending, and transitioning. So philosophically putting the pieces together, that for the very young ones, it was a 1 player, 1 ball kind of activities. And then it was just how many ways can we get kids playing games that look and feel like soccer? So there's nothing, for people with experience, you'll see a lot of things out there that don't look strange. It was just an idea of trying to get repetition of basic ideas, people getting touches with the ball in small numbers and in a format that the game became clear to them. Going back to the warm-up game, one of the things that, no, it's okay, you don't have to go back, Tammy, but
Okay.
it was very encouraging to see some of the kids take an initiative when they showed up. And I think in hindsight, we probably didn't do a good enough job of encouraging the coaches to encourage the kids to take ownership. And when it did happen, it was really good to see, but it didn't happen enough. And it would probably be one of those evolution pieces that, again, there's a lot of moving parts that seem easy that are not easy for folk who haven't really looked at what does it mean to be a coach.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that was eye-opening for me, because this isn't a population with, you know, that I'm as experienced in with novice players or parent coaches, is simply the arrival game. The importance of having somebody going around and helping is that the arrival game, they would set up a 2 versus 2, but the field would be, you know, 8 yards long. And just that if you don't have a ton of experience and see as a parent coach, that spacing, if made bigger, how much more enjoyable and how many more touches or how many more dribbles or shots on goal they might get, you know, you wouldn't know until you get out there and you actually work with them. And I think to Tom's point, second point of being very player centered, I had a realization or a learning moment in Kansas City where, you know, we were told, hey, put the cones down and say the first field to get organized in a 1 versus 1 game gets into bonus point. and see how well the kids do, even at this age, of organizing themselves. So I think that's an opportunity that we might have missed early on with this.
And one of the feedbacks that we had from more of our traditional coaches were, when do we get to teach the kids throw-ins? When do we get to teach the kids corner kicks? And that was something we needed to address, because everything that we're doing is play-based. And, you know, the answer was simple, that Tom and Brad and Jason said, well, at the end, you're doing 4v4 and 5v5 and 7v7 scrimmages. So, you know, just stop real quick and show them the throw-in while they're playing. You know, throw them the corner kick while they're playing. You don't have to stop and line everybody up and practice it. I want to show you. Go ahead.
Just real quick before you move off of that game, the biggest challenge all of the coaches had, almost bar none, was coming to the fourth part of the session, which was the game, and understanding how to get a structure. So as we look at this from the stamp of the big picture, looking down, how do you help players understand the game? A lot of that is, what does it look and feel like to be in an organized structure, even if it's only 4? And even in this example, the third activity is a beginning of structure, and then the fourth activity is a larger sided. But that was the next frontier for this group of coaches, that over time, if that play 2, if we collectively could do a better job with helping them understand spacing, it would move the kids forward sooner. So go on, Tommy.
Okay, so oh, now hold on, my dog is barking. I just want to share with you where you can find our curriculum so that you guys can use that too. So if we go back, so when you go back to Green Soccer and go to coach information, here is our practice plans for our junior Bulldogs and our Bulldogs. So I'm going to click on our junior Bulldogs, which again, there are kindergarten and first graders. So hopefully each coach has a copy of these, and then they can also get them online on their phone. And then I also put like 100 extra copies in our shed that they can always grab it there. So they can look at, you know, for August 26th, they need to do ball tag and alien invasion. So there's their ball tag game. Each game has, you know, a quick 1-page. There's alien invasion. And then see where it says click for video, where I'm pointing to. They can also click on that link online, and it will go to the video that we produced of that game. Nope, I switched off of that, but I wonder where I stopped that.
Sharing video through Zoom is not an easy thing, so.
No, that didn't work. So I'm just gonna stop sharing this screen. Oops. So Brad, how do I get back to stop sharing? Okay.
There you go.
There you go. Is there anything else I need to cover?
So moving forward, so Jason says, I tried clicking on the green coach handbook, but it led to a password protected Google site. Is that the case? Is this
I will, if it is, I will open it for sharing.
So Tammy, maybe the last thing is just through this process of an evolution of, you know, you had a club set of, you know, young coach trainers come in and try and do foot skills, and now you've evolved it to this sort of coach has more guidance and assistance with game-based practices. What do you see as the next evolution with the program?
Jason, where are we going next?
Well, I would say that, you know, Tammy had this juggernaut that was built kind of just there for the taking. And, you know, along with Brad, Tom, Dan, and myself, we've kind of continued to just bounce ideas off of it. And one thing that Tammy does great with, if you guys ever want to bounce a question off her, sorry, Tammy, I would would shoot it her way, because what I do is I spit out an idea that is soccer oriented, and Tammy takes it and runs with it. So the Bulldog Plus thing kind of came to me one day as I wanted to take players to develop them for travel, but also not ruin our rec program. And Tammy instantly took it and structured it. I would recommend, if you guys have an idea or, bounce a question that way to Tammy. And I think our future is, I guess, whatever the next idea pops into Dan and I's head. And then Tammy will take it and steamroll it. I know it.
Okay, so I just uploaded actually some of those new junior Bulldog and Bulldogs today, so that's probably why I don't have the access open. But as soon as we get off, I will open the access for you guys to go ahead, and you're willing to look at that and download it. That PowerPoint presentation that I shared with you, tips for the coaches or handbooks for the coaches, it is actually 96 pages long. And it takes us an hour and a half to go through and give all the instructions to our coaches. I think it's time well spent, but it is a lot of work. Anything that ever pops into our head that we need to tell the coaches is on that presentation. It is developed over many years. Each year we keep adding more and more slides. I feel bad for the coaches. Okay, so I do have a question from Denzel asking, how early do we start registration? So let's take the spring, for example. Our spring registration is open the entire month of January, and we close it February 1st. And the whole month of February, I'm building rosters and getting coaches and doing game schedules. And then the goal is to have our coaches meeting when they come back from spring break, which usually, let's say, April 1st. So I spend I give myself a lot of time. I give myself all of February and all of March to get the rosters and game schedules and set up the meetings. And then meetings start the first week we come back from spring break, which is April 1st, and we will have 2 meetings. The first week they come back from spring break, we'll have our classroom meeting where we go through that PowerPoint presentation. The second week, on Monday and Tuesday, we will have coach training out on the field. The coaches will be trained either on Monday night or on Tuesday night, and then the kids arrive that Wednesday. So we delay practice that first week so that we can get the coaches on the field Monday and Tuesday for training. And in that training, that's when Brad and or Tom go through the lesson plans and teach. Each coach brings their own kit, and then they go through the curriculum, and Brad and Tom show them those lesson plans and how to do those games that we've given them. Okay, I saw another question pop up, but I don't know where it went.
So it's Jerry Shetway typed in. He said he's got limited audio. Jerry asked, was the rec program started by the rec department or an independent organization?
Green Soccer is independent of Green's rec department. The city of Green does not run their own rec department. It leaves it up to volunteers to run. So, we are, our own little private club within the community. Baseball's their own private club. Football's their own private club. Basically, the city of Green provides us with the fields, and they line our fields. Other than that, us volunteers do all of the work for free.
And there's no fee for the field usage?
They do not charge us for the field usage or painting it. They mow it every week and line it, and we do not pay for that. No. We do have to buy our own goals, and we do have to give the city proof of insurance that we cover $1 million insurance policy.
All right. If there are no more questions, I'd like to thank, first of all, everybody who joined us today to hear Tammy's story and about Green Soccer. Hopefully my initial description that it was a unique story and an exceptional story held true. Special thanks to Tom for his help in setting up the curriculum and helping devise and what green soccer does, and certainly to Tammy for all the work that she puts in the community. One of the things that I'm really happy about in choosing to live in green is the level of commitment in the community and integration for the soccer programs. It's sort of nice to see and to watch my kid. You know, she came in late, but she feels part of the soccer community, which is good. So Tammy, again, thanks to you for your time in doing this. Our next presentation is Thursday with Janet Rayfield. That one is at 4 o'clock, watching a game. And then next week, Shannon McMillan on the Thursday, former women's national team player. So busy week coming up. All right. So Tom, anything else you want to say?
Just thanks. You've done fantastic. This thing only works when people take initiative and put the quality of work that you've done, Tammy. And I'm going to put you front and center because this is impressive as you want. And Jason and Dan will probably tell you they have an easy job because of what you've done with this. But it's just fantastic. I wish we could bottle this up and send it everywhere. It's just not easy to do what you've done.
Well, I have to say that it's been a lot easier now that the high school coaches are involved, because before this was a parent running the program with other parents. And so any complaints, I was a parent answering directly to another parent. And, you know, made some, you know, I don't know if the word's enemies, but, you know, it was kind of uncomfortable with, you know, in some situations. And now if there's a problem, I get to pass it on to the high school coaches to deal with, you know, our directors of coaches now, and that I can work on organizing and they can deal with any problems with coaches or parents.
Thank you, Tommy. Thanks, Dan. Dan. Jason.
Thank you.
Okay,
All
guys,
right, guys.
as soon as we hang up, I'm going to open those links so that you can click on our curriculum and our handbook.
That's after you mix your first margarita for Cinco de Mayo.
And that's coming next.
It's the next Zoom call.
That's my next Zoom call.
And then
All right,
one more
everybody.
shout out. We have a very, very active Facebook account. On Facebook, it's Green Soccer Association, and we post a lot of our registration announcements, but we also post a lot of challenges for the kids. Both our high school coaches and Tom is posting challenges on there. So I think it's not just a social tool, but I think it's also an educational tool to follow us on Green Soccer Association. Okay,
Excellent.
that's it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
All right.
you.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
P5. Hi, Daly.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Daly.
welcome.
See you,
Denzel.
Deli. See you, Denzel.